Thank you. Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Bridges, Cook, Quorum, Court, Crowder, Danielson, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Foote, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hill, Heisey, Holbert, Lee, Lundeen, Marble, Moreno, Pedersen, Priola, Rankin, Rodriguez, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Story, Tate, Todd, Williams,
Excused.
Winter, Woodward, Zenzinger. Mr. President.
Here. With 34 present, 0 absent, 1 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Pedersen, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the Journal. Senator Lundeen.
Good morning and thank you, Mr. President. I move the reading of the Journal of Monday, March 25th, 2019 be dispensed with, and that journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Committee reports.
March 26, 2019, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 207 be amended as follows as amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. March 26, 2019, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 208 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. March 26, 2019, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 209 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 26, 2019, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 210 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 26, 2019, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 211 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 26, 2019, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 212 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 26, 2019, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 213 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 26, 2019, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 214 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar.
Senate Services.
Correctly printed, Senate Bill 207, 208, 209, 210, 211, 212, 213, 214, 215, and 216, correctly engrossed. Senate Bill 174, 189, 194, correctly re-engrossed. Senate Bill 5 and 144, correctly revised. House Bill 1065, 1186, 1197, correctly revised. House Bill 1129, 1135, correctly enrolled. Senate Bill 31, 151, and 152.
Introduction of bills.
Senate Bill 217 by Senators Foot and Tate and Representative Snyder, concerning healthcare provider liens related to charges for medical care provided to a person injured as a result of the negligence or wrongful acts of another person.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 1196 by Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez and Senator Moreno, concerning student financial assistance for students who are classified as in-state students for tuition purposes.
Education.
House Bill 1221 by Representatives Coleman and Valdez and Senators Bridges and Pedersen, concerning the regulation of electric scooters.
Transportation and Energy.
House Bill 1238 by Representatives Gray and Van Winkle and Senators Winter and Priola, concerning the authority of the Division of Housing to regulate factory-build structures.
Business, Labor, and Technology. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions. Consideration of resolutions. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Resolution 006.
Senate Resolution 6 by Senators Fields and Tate, concerning the designation of March 26, 2019 as Colorado Children's Health Day.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Resolution SR 006 and ask that portions of it be read.
Mr. Carpenter, please read portions of Senate Resolution 006.
Senate Resolution 6 by Senators Fields and Tate, concerning the designation of March 26, 2019 as Colorado Children's Health Day. Whereas, good health lays the groundwork for success in many areas of a child's life. And whereas, when children are healthy, physically, mentally, and socially, they are more likely to attend school ready to learn, miss fewer days of school, and have the energy and focus to pay attention in the classroom. And whereas, healthy children tend to be happier, more inclusive of others, and more resilient when confronted with challenges because they have greater self-control, which, according to a Duke University longitudinal study, is a #1 indicator of childhood success from birth to age 32. And whereas, according to the World Health Organization, consuming a healthy diet helps to prevent childhood malnutrition in all its forms, as well as a range of non-communicable diseases and conditions. However, increased production of processed foods, rapid urbanization, and changing lifestyles have led to a shift in dietary patterns, and children are now consuming more foods high in energy, fats, free sugars, and salt and sodium, and many children do not eat enough fruits, vegetables, and other dietary fiber, such as whole grains. And whereas 2 out of 3 children exercise 20 minutes or less, 4 or fewer times per week, nowhere near the 1 hour per day of exercise recommended for all children. And whereas there is a link between a lack of consumption of fresh produce and lean meats and obesity, and access to such food is often limited in certain rural and inner city areas. And whereas low-cost and convenient foods tend to be more highly processed and calorie-dense than most healthy foods and may not provide children with the vitamins and nutrients their brains and bodies need to develop in a healthy manner. And whereas ensuring that all children have knowledge of and access to adequate healthy food and safe places to exercise and play is an essential step to ending malnutrition, obesity, and depression in Colorado's children. And whereas, according to the Children's Hospital Colorado, today in Colorado, suicide is the leading cause of death for children ages 10 to 24, and an estimated 1 out of 6 teens has a diagnosable mental health condition. Prevention, early identification, early intervention, and treatment of these conditions are needed now more than ever. And whereas, on May 27, 2013, the World Health Organization adopted a comprehensive mental health action plan, 2013 through 2020, and both New York Assembly Bill 3887 and Virginia Senate Bill 953 enacted bills to support schools to further address mental health. And whereas, on January 10, 2019, Governor Jared Polis stated in his State of the State address, "If we want Colorado to be a place where every person can build a great life for themselves, where our economy can continue to grow fueled by a skilled workforce, then our schools need to provide students with the tools they need to succeed." And whereas, 5th grade children of Indian Ridge Elementary of the Cherry Creek School District, in partnership with the Living Closer Foundation, visited the Colorado General Assembly in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018 to promote children's health, including proper nutrition and access to physical and mental health resources, help all Colorado children to be happy and healthy by providing nutrition, education, healthy food options, social and emotional education, such as mindfulness practices, as well as creating safe places to learn and play. Share Skippy the Superoo and his educational program with all children in Colorado, inspiring them to play outside every day, choose water, eat lots of fruits and vegetables while limiting processed foods and junk food, and self-regulate using mindful practices, and promote a recommended daily allowance of sugar. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 72nd General Assembly of the State of Colorado that we, the Senate of the Colorado General Assembly, support the promotion of health for Colorado children by designating March 26, 2019 as Colorado Children's Health Day. Believe that providing children in daycare, school, and community settings with nutritious foods, plenty of opportunity for exercise, and tools to self-regulate is an important step to giving children a healthy start in life. And encourage schools, health professionals, and organizations to design activities and educational programs on Colorado Children's Health Day that meet the needs of individual communities.
Is there further discussion on Senate Resolution 006? Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, please be seated. I'm so excited for the 5th year we're able to celebrate Colorado Child's Health Day. The students and the faculty and the staff and the parents have made health an important focus for kids in schools. Their focus is on nutrition, their focus is on mindfulness, and their focus is on fitness. I'm here to acknowledge the members of the Indian Ridge Elementary School. We have over 100 kids that are here today, and they're split between the two chambers. And I want to highlight the principal of Indian Ridge Elementary School and the 5th grade students who have done so much over the years by making sure that what they eat during their lunch cafeteria time, that the meals there are nutritious, and they have a school garden, and they've done so much to share the importance of what you eat and how you exercise. Also joining us today is West Middle School from Cherry Creek and also Greenwood Elementary School, and members of the Living Closer Foundations and member from the Children's Hospital who have been consulting with Indian Ridge and some of the other schools about the importance of nutrition, diet, and fitness. So it is my pleasure to welcome you all here. I'm going to ask you to stand in a minute, but they did come bearing gifts, and we do have a special guest here. Skippy is here all the way from Australia. Skippy. And so Skippy made sure that you all had carrots on your desk, and you have a stress ball that looks like an orange. And so those are not meant to throw at each other. But when you're feeling a little stress, just squeeze it a little bit. And then we have waters for you can stay hydrated. If you look at their T-shirts, on their T-shirt it says, "Just breathe." Sometimes you just need to breathe. I was taught that you have to learn how to count to 10 before you respond. These kids are learning how to just breathe before you respond to anything that's happening around you, your circumstances. Breathe first, because that's important. So, members, I would like for all of the kids here in the gallery and on the benches to please stand. We want to welcome you and thank you for focusing in on your health and your fitness and your nutrition. Welcome to the State Senate.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I likewise want to welcome the Indian Ridge community. Members, if you channel your thoughts to the previous 4 years here in the Senate, my son went to elementary school at Indian Ridge, and this community represents my friends and neighbors, and I have always been very appreciative of their emphasis on health, and I can certainly credit them this morning with me having carrots for breakfast instead of the couple donuts I'd seen out in the minority office. So again, welcome students, welcome friends and neighbors, and members, thank you for hearing the resolution.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor and privilege of representing both West Middle School and Greenwood Elementary, and I just wanted to say welcome to the People's House and stay healthy.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Senate Resolution 006. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Resolution 006 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I kindly request that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on Senate Resolution 006.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, the Senate will stand in a brief recess so that we can welcome our guests to the Senate. The Senate will come back to order. Third reading of bills. Committee reports.
March 25th, 2019, the Committee on State Affairs and Military Affairs had consideration had a hearing on the following appointments. Committee appoints to be placed in consent calendar confirmed. Members of the Colorado Civil Rights Commission for term expiring March 13, 2020. AJ Menon, PhD of Fort Collins, Colorado, serves as representative of the statewide Chamber of Commerce and is unaffiliated in occasion by the resignation of Ulysses J. Cheney of Colorado Springs, Colorado, appointed. February 25th, 2019, the Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs had consideration and had a hearing on the following appointments. Committee appoints to be placed in consent calendar confirmed. Members of the Colorado Board of Veterans Affairs for term expiring June 30th, 2021. Longina Gonzalez of Colorado Springs, Colorado, a Republican veteran who has been honorably released or separated from the armed forces of the United States on occasion by the deployment or resignation of Lacey Galanco of Castle Rock, Colorado, appointed for terms expiring June 30th, 2022. Sheila Marie Quadrini Scanlon of Aurora, Colorado, to serve as a veteran and as a Republican, appointed. Dwayne E. Daly of Hot Sulphur Springs, Colorado, to serve as a veteran and as a Republican, reappointed. March 25th, 2019, the Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs had consideration had a hearing on the following appointments. Committee appointments to be placed in consent calendar confirmed. As the Board of Commissioners of Veterans Community Living Centers for a term expiring July 1st, 2022. Karen E. Kowalski, PhD, RN, NEABCANEFFAAN of Larkspur, Colorado, a veteran, reappointed. March 25th, 2019, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs had consideration on the merits. The committee recommends the following. House Bill 1024 will be referred favorably to the Committee on Legislative Council. March 25th, 2019, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends following. Senate Bill 198 be amended as follows. As submitted, be referred to Committee on Finance with a favorable recommendation. March 25th, 2019. Committee on Judiciary has had consideration and had hearing on the following appointments. Recommends appointments to be placed in consent calendar confirmed of the State Board of Parole effective August 20, 2018 for term expiring July 1st, 2021. Kristen Hilke of Arvada, Colorado, to serve as the law enforcement representative as chair in occasion by the resignation designation of Joe Morales of Parker, Colorado, appointed. March 25th, 2019, Committee on Judiciary for consideration of Mayor's Committee following. Senate Bill 201 be amended as follows. As amended, be referred to Committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on consent calendar. March 25th, 2019. Committee on Judiciary for consideration of Mayor's Committee following. Senate Bill 165 be referred favorably to Committee on Appropriations.
Third reading of bills. Third reading of bills consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, please read the titles to all the bills listed on the consent calendar.
Senate Bill 189 by Senators Todd and Lundin, Representative Cutter, concerning the continuation of the concurrent enrollment advisory board in connection therewith implementing the recommendations contained in the 2018 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies. House Bill 1186 by Representative McLaughlin and Exum, Senators Bridges and Cook, concerning fingerprinting options for background checks for school employees. House Bill 1197 by Representatives Garber and Singer and Senators Lee and Gardner, concerning restrictions on making public the personal information of government employees whose official duties involve child abuse and neglect cases. Senate Bill 194 by Senators Garcia and Zenzinger and Representatives Froelich and Van Winkle, concerning the addition of Colorado State University Global Campus as a designated institution of higher education for purposes of tuition assistance for members of the National Guard. House Bill 1065 by Representatives Soper and Roberts and Senator Rankin, concerning public hospitals, boards of trustees, and in connection therewith, eliminating the restriction that a board may not include more than 4 local residents and allowing a board to unilaterally acquire real or personal property by lease if the board has designated the public hospital as an enterprise.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the passage of all the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar, which includes Senate Bill 189, House Bill 1186, House Bill 1197, Senate Bill 194, as well as House Bill 1065.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of all the bills on the third reading consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, with a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 189 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Priola, Tate, Zenzinger, Bridges, Winter, Rodriguez, Moreno, Patterson, Story, Cook, Gardner, with a vote of Senator Lee, Janal, Court, Gonzalez, Woodward, Fields. With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1186 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Crowder, Story, Janal, Todd, Moreno, Minority Leader, Winter, Tate, Lundin, Scott, Marble, Woodward, Gardner, House Bill, with a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, House Bill 1197 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Crowder, Heisey, Woodward, Story, Winter, Rodriguez, Tate, Rankin, Zenzinger, Pedersen, Todd, Janal, Priola, Cook, Gonzalez, the Minority Leader, Court, Lundin, Scott. Please add the President. With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 194 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Crowder, Heisey, Foote, Janal, Moreno, Todd, Gonzalez, Cook, Priola, Story, Bridges, Winter, Court, Sonnenberg, Woodward, Rankin, Gardner, Fields, Pedersen, Tate, Lundin, Lee, Rodriguez. Marble, the Minority Leader. Please add the President. Please add Senator Scott. With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, House Bill 1065 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Moreno, Tate, Gardner, third reading of bills. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1177.
House Bill 1177 by Representatives Sullivan and Garnett, Senators Court and Pedersen, concerning creation of extreme risk protection order in connection therewith, making an appropriation.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1177 lay over until tomorrow, Wednesday, March 27th.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1177 will be laid over until 3/27, Wednesday, 2019. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1170.
House Bill 1170 by Representatives Jackson and Weissman, Senators Williams and Bridges, concerning increasing tenant protections relating to the residential warranty of habitability.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1170 on third reading, final passage, and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of House Bill 1170 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? Senators Lundin, Hill, Heisey, Sonnenberg, Woodward, Gardner, Marble, Rankin, Cook, Smallwood, Tate, Scott, the Minority Leader. With a vote of 21 ayes, 13 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, House Bill 1170 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Moreno, Gonzalez, Winter, Pedersen, Court, Rodriguez, Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 174.
Senate Bill 174 by Senators Garcia and Hill and Representatives Monteo and Neville concerning tuition assistance eligibility for dependent children of certain persons and in connection therewith determining eligibility for dependents of prisoners of war, military personnel missing in action, National Guardsmen, law enforcement officers, and firefighters.
Senator Hill.
Mr. President, I move Senate Bill 174.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of Senate Bill 174 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 174 is passed. Co-sponsor, Senator Hill.
Mr. President, I ask for use of the current roll call as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on Senate Bill 174. General orders, second reading of bills, consent. Sharon Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of General Order, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for considerations of General Order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of all of the bills on the General Order second reading of bills consent calendar?
Senate 137 by Senators Todd and Crowden, Representative Hansen concerning the extension of the Colorado Student Leaders Institute. Senate Bill 162 by Senator Corwin, Representative McCluskey concerning continuation of the River Outfitter Advisory Committee in connection therewith, implementing the recommendations contained in 2018 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies. Senate Bill 164 by Senators Todd and Crowden, Representative Mullica concerning the continuation of in-home support services within the Colorado Medical Assistance Act and in connection therewith, implementing the recommendations contained in 2018 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies. Senate Bill 52 by Senator Garcia and Representative Mullica concerning expansion of an emergency medical service provider's scope of practice.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the consent calendar and their associated committee reports, which includes Senate Bill 137 and the Appropriations Committee report, Senate Bill 162, Senate Bill 164 and the Health and Human Services Committee report, as well as Senate Bill 52 and the Health and Human Services Committee report.
Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all of the committee reports on the General Order second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it and the committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of all of the bills on the General Order second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Madam Chair, I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it, and the bills are, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee will place legal reports out in consideration of the following test bills being the second reading thereof makes the following recommendation on Senate Bill 137 as amended, Bill 162, Senate Bill 164 as amended, Senate Bill 52 as amended, passed every order and goes to place calendar for the reading and final passage.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 137 as amended, Senate Bill 162, Senate Bill 164 as amended, Senate Bill 052 as amended, passed on second reading and ordered and grossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 137? I'm sorry, to House Bill 1119.
House Bill 1119 by Representative Coleman and Senator Foote concerning public disclosure of a completed peace officer internal investigation file.
Senator Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1119, and there is no committee report.
Thank you, Senator Foote. Is there any discussion on House Bill 1119? Senator Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair and colleagues. House Bill 1119 is a very good transparency bill. In this case, it's transparency of internal investigations that have been completed by a police agency. And before I get into a little bit of the specifics, I want to quote just a couple of sentences from a number of cases that have come out regarding this issue since it's been litigated for quite some time. And I think that they encapsulate the real importance for transparency, particularly when it comes to internal investigations that have been completed from a police agency. Quote, "The public has an interest in knowing how its public law enforcement officers behave in their jobs and what constraints are in place to prevent inappropriate conduct." That comes from El Paso County District Court in 2007. Quote, "The public knows what started the investigation and it knows the results thereof. It is entitled to know what happened in between those two events," a 1998 case. And finally, I'll quote you something from a 2003 case. "The public does have a legitimate and compelling interest in ensuring that its police officers properly perform their official duties and honestly investigate complaints from citizens related to the performance of those duties." And I just wanted to quote those because I think they say it better than what I've been able to say it before. Usually I just say transparency is very important, in particular when it comes to the very important duties of police officers and their relationship with the community. Now, the disclosure of internal investigation files, those that have been completed, has been something that has been dealt with for quite some time, and it's been dealt with either through the agency just deciding when it should disclose these things, or more recently, within the last 13 years, there's a case, the Harris case, that has dictated under what circumstances these internal investigation reports should be disclosed. And the Harris case outlines 5 factors that should be considered by police agencies when deciding whether or not to disclose internal investigation files that have been completed. The problem has been, though, that with some departments, the rule has been non-disclosure over disclosure. The media, representative of the media or a citizen will approach and ask for a result of an internal investigation, and typically 9 times out of 10 or more, they will be denied. Now, these matters have been litigated in courts around the state, and generally, if not always, when they're litigated, the media outlet or the citizen gets access to those internal investigation files because there is such a public interest, as I outlined in some of those quotes from cases that have discussed the disclosure of these files. But my opinion is, and I think others share this opinion, that you shouldn't have to rely on litigation. You shouldn't have to rely on hiring an attorney or getting an attorney out of the goodness of his or her heart to represent somebody to get these files. It's in the public interest to disclose these files. And it's also in the police agency's interest to disclose these files as well, because it helps build trust between the community. And it makes sure also, if the police investigation is known that it could be public at some point in time, then I think, and we probably see this dynamic as well, we know it's going to be public, so we need to make sure we cross the T's and dot the I's. and make sure it's done right. This is not a new concept as much as I would like to claim that it is. It's been done for quite some time in many other states, and not red or blue states or small or big states, but states that range across the country, big and small, red and blue. And it's also been done in one of the biggest departments in this state for the last dozen years to good effect. This bill actually is not necessarily modeled after what's been done in one of those big departments in the state for the last 12 years, but it actually parallels what they've been doing for 12 years, and it seems like it's been working out well for them. Certainly it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of complaints, and it's also achieved what I said should be achieved, which is transparency that helps the public and helps the agency. So having said that, I look forward to any opposition, which I can't imagine there would be because this is such a good bill. But if there is, then I look forward to the debate, but ask for an aye vote at the end. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in opposition of House Bill 1119. You know, I did internal affairs for 6 years, and so I know the effort and the seriousness what agencies put into their internal affairs because they care about their reputation with the public. You know, either you have a good reputation with the community already, or you don't. And this really does nothing to, I think, enhance that reputation with your community, or it does nothing to further your standing with your community. House Bill 1119 seeks to strip officers of any expectation of non-disclosure and confidentiality during the internal affairs process. Currently, there is a balancing test that provides the custodian of records with ultimately the court and the ability to balance a peace officer's right to privacy against a compelling interest. The bill seeks to eliminate one side of the scale such that a peace officer's safety and privacy cannot be considered. Like I said earlier, this bill is not a magic bullet for improving community relations with local law enforcement. In fact, there's no evidence to suggest that this measure would have any effect on community relations, or that releasing these files would not have a negative impact on members of law enforcement and their families. These type of efforts should happen on a local level in a manner that fits the specific community. Though there are some redactions in the bill, there are not enough to offer protections to officers whose names will still be made public. Once you have an individual's name, it's easy to uncover other personal information about that individual. The bill applies to all complaints, regardless of whether or not they were sustained and what type of behaviors they address. The officers will now be tried in court of public opinion for complaints that may be frivolous or unfounded. Given the social media world we live in, this poses a safety and privacy concern for officers who may well have been found to have done nothing wrong. It's important to underscore that the internal affairs process does not deal with criminal behavior. The internal affairs process is designed to deal with violations of agency policy and to help agencies improve upon those policies. This bill singles out one type of public employee to have their personal files made public without consideration of the potentially dangerous impact on peace officers and to their families. There is already a balance system in place to manage requests for internal affairs file, ensuring that there is transparency as it concerns the conduct of peace officers is important. However, peace officers should also have the same right to their privacy and safety. Pursuant to a lawsuit of Harris v. Denver Post, there are currently 5 factors that are used to determine whether a record should be released or withheld. This bill seeks to create a blanket policy relating to the release of internal affairs records rather than allowing for a case-by-case review prior to releasing very sensitive information. This bill eliminates the privacy rights of peace officers and fails to account for the impact on the lives of peace officers and their families when unbalanced disclosure of internal records is allowed. Let me tell you some of the groups that are opposed to this bill: the Colorado Fraternal Order of Police, the County Sheriffs of Colorado, the Denver Protective Police Association is opposed to this bill, as are the State Patrol Professional Troopers Association. So I'd ask for a no vote on House Bill 1119.
Thank you, Senator Cook. Senator Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to address a couple of things. And I mentioned the Harris case and the balancing test that's been in place by case law since 2005. The problem is it's not really working very well, because time and time again what we see are internal investigation reports that are denied, and those are reports that are related to cases that have actually been brought to court through civil litigation, where there have been large settlements levied against the department that taxpayers have had to pay as a result, yet the internal investigation reports are still denied under the Harris test. And as I said before, it's as many as 9 out of 10 times that these reports are denied. And so certainly the public, I think, at least some, will have an impression that if you're denying records that many times, then you might have something to hide, fair or not. That's really what we're talking about with transparency. And maybe that's not fair, but that's what people think. And what I said about this policy being in place in one of the largest departments in the state is that there's nothing that they withhold. So the general reaction has been, okay, here's a report. Maybe it was not substantiated. Okay, who cares? Nothing to see here. As opposed to, if the department withholds the report, then maybe there is something to see there, even if there isn't. So this bill would remove that kind of problem, I think, that exists between many departments and many individuals. You know, I want to mention that there is a safety exception in the bill that is part of the factors that can lead to redactions. That has been considered, that is in the bill. And as to the criticism about how it names specific officers, I just want to point out that I could go to any police department right now and ask for any police report that has been completed. It's not an investigation that's pending, and it's releasable to the public, except for very narrow circumstances. And those have officers' names on them, not contact information, but officers' names. So those are already available. Ironically, if, say, someone was to file a criminal complaint against an officer for conduct, that would be investigated, and if the case was closed, that record would be available. But if someone was to file an internal investigations complaint or a complaint that would lead to internal investigations, right now the Harris test would allow, and many departments do follow, pretty much a non-disclosure rule. So again, it seems to me that transparency is the default, or should be the default position. That's what this bill does for completed internal investigation reports.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, there is an option if the records are not released, and that is if such a case is so egregious that somebody can go to court, and then a judge can decide, an impartial judge can look at it and have an in-camera hearing and decide, hey, is this information releasable or not? So there is an option. We don't need this, this bill, because people can get those internal affairs files if need be, if it's that egregious. And I guess my question is, why are we singling out just law enforcement? Why not, why don't we get the personnel files of teachers and release their investigations, their internal reports? They do things wrong and they do investigations on teachers. Why are we just singling out law enforcement? Why not make it for all public employees?
Is there any further discussion? Senator Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly won't belabor this, and I know that the good senator from Weld County knows this, but there is a special relationship between peace officers and the public. Peace officers, rightfully so, have an incredible amount of power in the public to use force when necessary, and there also is an increasing amount of scrutiny of peace officers in the public, and rightfully so, because of the power that they have. I'm certainly not saying here, and this bill doesn't imply in any way, that peace officers should not have that power. But with that kind of power and that kind of responsibility often comes increased scrutiny. The public certainly feels that way in many cases, and so therefore that's going to distinguish peace officers, I think, from teachers and other professions, and rightfully so.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't belabor it either. But if a peace officer uses force or excessive force, here again, there's an option, and that is criminal charges. So if it's that egregious, then the person can file complaints with the DA's office. Let's face it, there's cameras everywhere, and has caught some bad actors using excessive force, and the charges have been filed. And let the person, that officer, go to court, defend themselves in criminal matter until, so if they're guilty, then they're found guilty, and then they'll be off the force. So, you know, teachers have a lot of power too, in that they're teaching our kids, and they have a lot of influence on them. So I think their personnel files should be released as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1119? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. The motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1119. All those in favor, please stand. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. The motion for the adoption of House Bill 1119 is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1131?
House Bill 1131 by Representative Hakazulis and Senator Winter concerning a requirement to share the wholesale acquisition cost of a drug when sharing information concerning the drug with another party.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1131 lay over until tomorrow, Wednesday, March 27th.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1131 until March 27th, 2019. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is adopted, and House Bill 1131 will lay over until March 27, 2019. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1086?
House Bill 1086 by Representative Duran and Senator Pedersen concerning the conduct of plumbing inspections to ensure compliance with the plumbing law.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1086 lay over until tomorrow, Wednesday, March 27th.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, House Bill 1086 is laid over until March 27, 2019. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 203?
Senate Bill 203 by Senator Fenberg and Representative Garnett and Neville concerning payment of expenses of the Legislative Department.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 203.
To the bill, Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, 'tis the season to start talking about dollars. This is the Legislative Department fiscal year budget request. This is something that has been discussed for, well, a couple of months in the Legislative Council and in the Executive Committee. There was a lot of discussion around the appropriate increases for, in particular, partisan staff in the caucuses, and this is where we reached consensus. And this did have unanimous support in the executive committee, and is sort of where we landed. I'm happy to get into any specific questions people have, but a couple of the highlights, just so everybody knows, this is essentially the budget for the General Assembly, as well as the service agencies that sort of surround us to help us do our work. That includes the General Assembly itself, the Colorado Youth Advisory Council, the Joint Budget Committee, the Legislative Council, the Office of Legislative Legal Services, as well as the State Auditor's Office. A couple of the highlights on the numbers. This includes a 3% base salary increase, just like other state employees will likely be getting in the budget this year. We felt it was appropriate to reflect that in this budget as well. It includes an increase in members' salaries pursuant to statute, but only for some of you. I do not get to count myself in that lucky few. But it does reflect the increase in salaries that was approved a few years ago. It increases the number of aid hours for all members, as well as increases the hourly rate for aides up to $15 an hour for the aides in the room. That for maybe a senator from Montrose is thinking about being an aide in the future, and he's going to get a little bit of an increase. And then it also includes 7.4 new FTE for partisan staff. That is across both chambers and both parties. And you can see in the summary of the request itself what the allocation is there. I believe it is 3 and 4.3 for the Senate, 4.4 for the House. It also includes some increases for IT and for technology support, including a UX developer for the website and our apps and things like that, to make sure everything is user-friendly, not just for us as legislators, but also for the general public, so they can access transparent information about what we do. And then there's also an increase for FTE for the Office of the State Auditor to continue doing the work on the tax expenditure analysis that I think many of us have found very, very helpful. There are various other obvious things in here. It does reflect I believe a 9% increase overall. I understand people might have some heartburn about that, but hopefully the explanations I gave make sense in simply doing some across-the-board budget, base salary increases, as well as some support for us in terms of partisan staff as well as aides, and then the various other things that surround the General Assembly to support the work that we do. Madam Chair, that's where I'll leave it for now, unless people have specific questions, but I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L003?
Amendment L003 to Senate Bill 203 by Senators Todd and Lee. Amend printed bill page 2, lines 3, strike 51
Senator
million.
Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we move L003. And what this amendment is adding and altering a little bit of the amount of money that is allocated for membership and dues for different organizations. Currently, we are paying $213,000 for membership to NCSL. We are currently paying $77,000 to Educational Commission of the States, $38,000 to the Energy Council, and CSG West has been an organization that we have been involved with and engaged with for many, many years, and at this point, that was the amount that was not allocated, and so that is what this amendment is about. And I'm happy to speak to a little bit more about that, but that is the history of L003.
Is there any discussion? Senator Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too advocate to put CSG, Council of State Governments, back in the budget. They are an extraordinary educational training institution for legislators, in addition to providing research. But last summer alone, colleagues, the Council of State Governments came to Colorado and through their Justice Center did a comprehensive analysis of our entire juvenile justice system. Senator Gardner and I chaired a half a dozen meetings of the dream team of juvenile justice experts from the state of Colorado. The Justice Center from the Council of State Governments sent a half a dozen employees out here who spent literally hundreds and hundreds of hours looking at Colorado's juvenile justice system, came up with recommendations which went into a bill which is before this chamber right now to ensure that our juvenile justice system complies with best practices around the country and is consistent with what works. Without the Council of State Governments, this initiative, this overall change in our juvenile justice system would not have occurred. So through the good offices of the Council of State Governments, Colorado is now poised to be one of the leading states on juvenile justice in the country. And for a mere $135,000, we will have the support of the Council of State Governments for another year. So I strongly urge my colleagues to support this amendment to the legislative budget. Thank you.
Is there any, Senator Todd?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a little bit of history, I think it's important for us to know and understand why it is so important for Colorado to stay involved with Council of State Governments from the West region. The Council of State Governments is basically a nonprofit and nonpartisan organization. It is one of the organizations I have been involved with personally for the last 15 years. And the fact that CSG West really focuses on the Western regional activities and interests is what is so very important. The origination started with Henry Toll. A little bit of history. I know our minority leader loves to go down history lane, but Henry Toll, back in 1933, was a state senator from Colorado. And he was the one who really said, we need to bring the three branches of government together, legislative, judicial, and executive, and bring them together in opportunities to learn about how we interact and how we work together. And so as a result of that, Toll Fellows has become a way for people to receive that kind of training. I know when I participated, I met with people from Nevada, from Utah, from New Jersey, from all over the United States in different branches of government to learn and understand about how we interact and how we work together. Since 2000, in partnership with Colorado's El Palmar Foundation, we have also established the Western Leadership Academy. And I know in our legislature, current legislature, as well as past members, we have had from Speaker Becker, Representative Jenny Arndt, Representative Buckner, Representative Catlin, Representative Lontine, Representative or Senator Williams, Representative Lawrence, Representative Hansen, Representative Lewis, Representative McLaughlin, Representative Ransom, Representative Buck, Senator Crowder, Senator Janal, Representative Kraft Tharp, Senator Brittany Petterson, who now is Senator Brittany Petterson, Representative Lois Landgraf. So you see that as a cross-section, it is bipartisan, and again, an opportunity to enrich leadership abilities and training. The different conferences that have been held and the opportunities for people to attend, and I know our own Senator Rhonda Fields has been invited to participate in a national health conference. The opportunities are so rich, and again, I urge us to continue our involvement and our engagement with Council of State Governments and the dues. And with that, I move L003.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Lee.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to add to the senator from Aurora's list that Western Legislative Academy. I attended it my first year in the legislature with Senator Grantham, Jeannie Nicholson, and Janik Joshi. So there's 4 members. Again, it's always bipartisan. It's always a Republican and a Democrat, one from each house. And quite candidly, it showed me a lot about how government works, how to work bipartisanly, and how to work to get good legislation. I think the Council of State Government is just a terrific resource for legislators to use, in addition to which they will research your issues and give you briefs on what's going on in other states. So I would encourage, again, support for keeping Colorado a member of the Council of State Governments.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wow, it's hard to get to the well today. Again, thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I rise in support of Amendment L03. It is the funding for our dues to CSG West. As my colleague from Colorado Springs mentioned, the Council of State Governments is doing valuable work, work that we have taken advantage of, making a difference in the kind of data we have for some of our programs, particularly the juvenile justice program. And in the past, in my several sessions in the General Assembly, I have participated in CSG West as the senator from Aurora mentioned. CSG West is particularly important because it focuses because it's the western branch of CSG, focuses on the problems of the West, the challenges that are unique to those of us in the West, things like energy, things like water, and the ability to come together with legislators from our sister legislatures here in the West is important. Therefore, I urge support for L003.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the discussion on the amendment. I want to support the Majority Leader in the bill as an effort and explain that in the Executive Committee we had looked at this and there seemed to be a lack of participation. For the amount, I think it's $135,000. This is an important discussion because if a majority of this body, as has been expressed by the good senator from El Paso County, if the majority of you see value in this organization, you are primarily who this would be for. I do not participate in CSG West, and I haven't participated in NCSL, but that doesn't mean that you should follow my example. If you find value in this, this is an important vote, and we need to have your input. In the Executive Committee, again, we looked at this last year and again this year, and we had some question as to whether that was a good investment in taxpayer dollars. And just invite anyone else who finds value in CSG West to please let us know here.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L003? Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do support this amendment. CSG is actually the only one that I use.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L003. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Is there any? Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, members, this is an important bill, and it generally sort of flies by and flies through here. We do our legislative appropriation ahead of the long bill for systemic reasons, if you will. We prefer to have our appropriation as a separate appropriation so that it doesn't get caught up in the long bill and the politics of the long bill. Every year, what we do is we calculate what it will cost of all of the things that we calculate for the General Assembly, the Joint Budget Committee, Ledge Legal Services, Ledge Counsel, State Auditor, our staff. We also calculate and appropriate for having all of us here for 120 days. Because the state constitution, as you know, says that we cannot meet for any longer than 120 days. And there's also kind of a contingency appropriation there in the event of a special session. Members, listen up. Here is your opportunity. Here is your opportunity. We need not appropriate for 120 days. And as much as I love all of my colleagues, I'm sure you're tiring of me. And
I would remind the good senator from El Paso County to not impugn the motives of any of the members of this body.
Madam Chair, I'm just trying to make my point to the senator from Denver. What I think we could do, what I have proposed in the past, what we ought to commit ourselves to doing now is to meet for 90 days next year. And if we do that, I wager you that we will be able to get done in 90 days. We may need to resolve that we begin our session a little later so that we can get the March budget forecast and that the Joint Budget Committee can have the opportunity for that. But we could save the taxpayers $375,000. That would be 30 fewer days to read matters at length. The benefits of this are phenomenal. And so, for that reason, Madam Chair, I wish to offer an amendment.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L001?
Amendment L001, symbol 2.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you. So, as I was saying, Madam Chair, and for the senator from Denver.
Senator Gardner, would you please move your amendment?
Yes, thank you. I wish to move L001, and because I wish to move L001, I move L001. So, thank you, Madam Chair. What this does is reduce the appropriation for the General Assembly for next year by about $375,000. That's what it takes and costs the taxpayers for us to be here for 30 days. If we would simply be more efficient, we can be home. Some of us have jobs. We are citizen legislators. We benefit from the contact with our citizens. Line 1 and 2 are the kind of overall appropriation, and that rattles through to where it comes through. I ask for your support for L001 in order to ensure that we only enjoy each other's company for 90 days. We save the taxpayers of Colorado $375,000. We come, do our business, and get back to business. It is a great opportunity, one you should avail yourself of now. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I urge no vote.
Is there any, Senator Gardner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'm all choked up. I didn't realize the Majority Leader would wish to spend 120 days with me next year, but I still urge an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. the senator from El Paso County may request to be excused for 30 of the days next year, and I will look into that and have that discussion with the president if he would like.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I continue to urge an aye vote and note that that is not an excuse that the Majority Leader himself may grant.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L001? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L001. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is lost. Is there any further discussion on Senator Gardner?
Thank you. Well, despite my efforts to save the taxpayers of Colorado $375,000 by not having us read things at length for 30 days or have to be excused or something, there's another issue within the legislative appropriation bill. So what the bill does is appropriate for our partisan staff. And this is the subject of long and lengthy discussion, and there's even between the two chambers and how they do that. And however they want to do that in the House, that is fine. As it turns out, however, in a discussion of comity, equanimity, and so forth, I began to look at our relative appropriations of our staffs, and it turns out that the majority staff has about $200,000 more per year for its staff than does the minority. Now, I would gather that if there was a huge majority that perhaps servicing and taking care of that many more people would merit some huge disparity. But as we know, there are 19 Democrats, 16 Republicans. Just a shift of 2 would make a different majority. Given that very close majority, what I think is more appropriate in the allocation of that partisan staff budget and the way that we do it is to allocate it in proportion to the caucus membership. And so, Madam Chair, I have requested an amendment to be prepared.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L002?
Amendment L002.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wish to move L002, and so I move L002. And L002 says, with regard to the portion that is allocated for partisan full-time employment personnel services to the majority and minority caucuses of the Senate, must be divided in proportion to caucus membership. This will move about $100,000 by the numbers to the minority staff. This doesn't take place this year, but if approved, would take place next year. That would balance out. It would not equalize, but it would balance out the relative budgets between majority and minority on a per caucus membership, so that when you're out there trying to improve the level of membership of your caucus, what you're doing is also trying to improve your budget. This seems to me to be fair. It is a matter of equity, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I urge a no vote. This was discussed and agreed upon by leaders in both chambers and both parties, and all thought this was a fair way to allocate the funding and the resources. I will remind the body that the majority party actually does more than just simply a few more members to manage, but they also manage other things, and there are additional tasks and requirements of the staff for the party that is in the majority. And perhaps one day in the distant future, the minority party will be in the majority, and they will be grateful for that because of those additional responsibilities. But I urge a no vote. This was discussed, and I think the way it is in the budget right now is a fair way to allocate the resources.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Gardner.
Thank you. Well, this may have been discussed, and all the parties in that room may have decided, but as we learned yesterday, members of one's caucus may disagree with the leadership of one's caucus. It seems to me that the allocation is simply wrong. I have thought that consistently from the beginning of my service here. The reason the majority has more task is because it is promoting a majority agenda. I don't say that pejoratively or anything else. The minority staff promotes and works on and assists its members in doing the same. And we have 16 members and ought to have a proportionate share. I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on Amendment L002? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is lost. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, a couple of notes on Senate Bill 203. One, you'll notice that we do not have a fiscal note for the bill. It is part of the long bill, and staff has reminded me of that. They are bringing us copies of the canary sheet. I'm not sure that it will be printed on the yellow paper, but you'll at least have some idea of what the numbers are related to this bill. The reason it doesn't have its own fiscal note, I've been reminded by staff, is that this actually is part of the long bill, the budget, and that would, I think, be nearly impossible. We would have a ream and a half of paper that would be the fiscal note, because that's basically what the bill is. Second observation to the last amendment, a little perspective there. I do agree with the majority leader in that we had a long conversation about budgeting this year. And to the good senator from El Paso County, I want to give him credit for promoting the idea that budgeting might be based more on the number of members, the ratio 19-16 now of 35. And frankly, the increase that we have over last year was largely based on that perspective. I also want to express to you that the difference between the chambers, I did not understand the budgeting differences between the House and the Senate, but they are significant. In the House, we have learned that the majority and minority have traditionally not had their own budgets, but there is one global budget for the chamber. Managed by the clerk. And here in the Senate, the minority has a budget, the majority has the budget, and then there is a nonpartisan staff budget managed by the secretary. I think that what we will see over the next year is the House will learn to do things more like the Senate, which I think is good for everyone, and we'll have more understanding and transparency because there will actually be 6 budgets, 2 chamber, 2 minority, 2 majority, and I think that will be best for everyone. But I do appreciate the good senator from El Paso County promoting the idea, the suggestion that the revenue should be divided based on the number of members, the ratio of 35 majority, minority, and that really was largely how we based the increase from last year. And I'm grateful to the majority leader and the president for being part of that conversation. Do ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 203.
Excellent. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 203. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 133?
Senate Bill 133 by Senators Janal and Todd and Representative Michelson Janae concerning the regulation of genetic counselors.
Senator Janal. Senator Todd.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And we move Senate Bill 133 and the Appropriations and Health and Human Services Committee report.
To the Health and Human Services Committee report. Senator Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the Health and Human Services Committee report, what we had is an amendment to relate to Title 12 for the recodification of the bill. And with that, I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Health and Human Services Committee report? Seeing none, is there any objections? Seeing none, the Health and Human Services Committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report, Senator Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the Appropriations Committee report basically is providing the fiscal impact for Senate Bill 133. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, that committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Janal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Genetic counselors are professionals that help patients understand the medical, the psychological, the familial implications of genetics and how they are involved in disease. And genetics and genetic counselors are the future of medicine. Genetic counselors are experts at communicating complicated information and their interface with healthcare providers and patients. They work as members of a healthcare team and as patient advocates. They cover the spectrum of life in regards to inherited disorders, anywhere from Huntington's and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's issues to newborns and immunodeficiency disorders to hereditary cancers and syndromes related to inherited bone and cartilage disorders. The list goes on and on and on. Genetic counselors focus on the importance of individual choice, involving not only the patient, but couples and families. And testing and counseling today is so very important to get it right, to provide an answer regarding a genetic condition or a chromosomal abnormality. And right now, there are 26 states that license genetic counselors. It's important that genetic counselors are recognized for the professionals that they are. And I ask for your support on Senate Bill 133.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 133. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 154?
Senate Bill 154 by Senator Corton, Representative Sirota, concerning the continuation of the regulation of psychiatric technicians by the State Board of Nursing in connection with implementing the recommendations contained in the 2018 Census report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Senator Cort.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 154, the Appropriations and the Senate State Affairs Committee reports. There wasn't a State Affairs report? Never mind. There wasn't a State Affairs report, but there was an Appropriations. All right, never mind.
To the bills.
Never mind. Thank you very much. Okay, to the bill. It is the psychiatric technician sunset. We adopted the recommendations of the Department of Regulatory Agencies' suggestions, and that's what the bill does. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 154. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee holds reports that on consideration of the following test bills being the second reading thereof and makes the following recommendation on Senate Bill 203 as amended, Senate 133 as amended, Senate 154 passed second read order, goes to place counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1119 passed second read order, revised place counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1131, House Bill 1086 later until 32719 retain their place on the calendar.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for adoption of the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment 002 to the committee of the whole report?
Committee of the Whole Amendment 002 to Senate Bill 203. Senator Gardner moved him in the report of the Committee of the Whole to the following Gardner floor Amendment L 002 to
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, members, we had a good discussion about this during the Committee of the Whole. I move Amendment 002.
To the amendment, sir.
Thank you. We had a good discussion about this. This is the amendment that would allocate the amount of money for partisan full-time staff on proportion to caucus membership. Right now, the disparity between the majority and the minority is about $200,000. This would shift $100,000 so that the minority would receive a budget for its staff in proportion to its membership. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I urge a no vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the body is the adoption of Amendment 002 to the Committee of the Whole. Are there any no votes? Senators Danielson, Gonzalez, the Majority Leader, Fields, Court, Winter, Rodriguez, Bridges, Lee, Moreno, Foote, Donovan, Todd, Janal, Story, Pedersen, Zenzinger. Please add the President. With a vote of 16 ayes, 18 no votes, 0 absent, 1 excused, that amendment is lost. There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Carpenter, please read Amendment 001.
Committee of the Whole Amendment 001.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Amendment 001.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is the Holy Grail. This amendment reduces the appropriation for our session next year from 120 days to 90 days. Here is your opportunity. It is, in all seriousness, an amendment I have carried in the other chamber, and I continue to believe that if we met about 2 weeks later in order to give opportunity for the March forecast and opportunity for the Joint Budget Committee to work in early January, we could be done in 90 days. We could save the people of Colorado $375,000, and we could be back to the business of meeting with and discussing the important issues with our constituents. There are added bonuses of limiting your contact with the senator from El Paso County, otherwise referred to as Bob. It really is something that can be done. Many general assemblies around the country meet for 90 days. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I urge a no vote. I also want to make sure, maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding of the Constitution is we actually aren't allowed to meet a couple weeks later in January. We have to meet when we meet.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the passage of Amendment 001 to the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Foote, Court, Winter, Story, Danielson, Lee, Bridges, Todd, the Majority Leader, Rodriguez, Fields, Donovan, Janal, Pedersen, Gonzalez, Zenzinger, Moreno. Please add the President. With 16 ayes, 18 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, that amendment is lost. The question before the body is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 203 as amended, Senate Bill 133 as amended, Senate Bill 154 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1119 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1131, House Bill 1086 laid over until 3/27/2019 and retaining their place on the calendar. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 76?
Senate Bill 76 by Senator Scott and Representative Rachel Valdez concerning the procurement of consulting engineer services for Department of Transportation construction projects.
Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. And unfortunately, I move to concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 76.
Senator Scott, please tell us why the Senate should concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 76.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, unfortunately, the committee that the bill requires a report to would have been gone by July 1st, so we had to extend the Efficiency and Accountability Committee that reports to CDOT and the highway commissioners so that we could continue that work. So therefore, the amendment fixes that problem. I urge an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the Senate is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 76. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, the motion is adopted. Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remove Senate Bill 76 as adopted as amended and as concurred with, and ask for an aye vote.
That is an improper motion.
Whoops. Oh, I'm sorry. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 76. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm a little nervous after voice votes yesterday, so I'm a little touchy.
The motion before the body is the repassage of Senate Bill 76. Were there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 076 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senator Winter. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 88.
Senate Bill 88 by Senator Gardner and Representative Tipper McKean concerning the adoption of the revised Uniform Unclaimed Property Act.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 88.
Senator Gardner, please tell us why the Senate should concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 88.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, members, recall that this is the revised Uniform Unclaimed Property Act. Heartbreaking that it is 100 pages and cannot be explained in detail at this time. But when it went to the House and actually out of the Senate, there was something that was non-uniform to the bill, and that was fine. In Colorado, our local governments run their own unclaimed property programs for fees and various returns of various collections and so forth. The municipal governments and county governments, asked to be exempted from the state program, and we assented to that. But it turns out that there's a variety of different ways in which those programs are administered around the state. Some local governments keep these amounts for 60 days, and if they aren't collected, they take them into their coffers. The state of Colorado basically keeps these things for a virtually unlimited amount of time, so that if someone comes up to claim them, claim their life insurance policy, their whatever their property might be, they can still get it. So what the House did was put some guardrails around this. Primarily the one being that local governments could not take this property into their own coffers and keep it until 5 years, and that is the major thing. So that was important in the House as guardrails around this local exemption, and I agree with that and ask for an aye vote in your concurrence.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 88. Are there any no votes? Senator Danielson. With a vote of 33 ayes, 1 no vote, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, the motion is adopted. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 88.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 88. Are there any no votes? Senator Tate. With a vote of 33 ayes, 1 no vote, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 88 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Consideration of governor's appointments consent. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Members of the Board of Trustees for the Colorado School for the Deaf and the Blind for term expiring July 1st, 2020. Andy McElhaney of Colorado Springs, Colorado, Republican, reappointed for term expiring July 1st, 2022. Nancy Inez Brown of Colorado Springs, Colorado, Republican, reappointed. Michelle Ann Butler of Colorado Springs, Colorado, an unaffiliated, reappointed. Alan G. Ward of Poncha Springs, Colorado, an unregistered voter, appointed. Member of the Colorado Student Leaders Institute Executive Board for term expiring July 7, 2019, Brian David Yates of Buena Vista, Colorado, to serve as a person with the community who has an interest or experience in education occasioned by the resignation of Letty Garcia Eckstein, reappointed. Members of the Colorado Commission on Higher Education for term expiring July 1st, 2019, Stephanie F. Donner of Denver, Colorado, a resident of the 1st Congressional District and Democrat occasioned by the resignation of John L. Anderson of Durango, Colorado, appointed. For term expiring July 1st, 2022, Pardis Madivi, Ph.D. of Denver, Colorado, a resident of the 1st Congressional District and Democrat, appointed. Venetia B. Kerr of Aurora, Colorado, resident of the 6th Congressional District and Democrat, reappointed. Members of the Board of Trustees for Fort Lewis College for terms expiring December 31st, 2022, Janet Kier Lopez Vilsack, Ph.D. of Mountain View, Colorado, Democrat, appointed. Alan G. Hill of Denver, Colorado, an unaffiliated, reappointed. Member of the College Invest Board of Directors for term expiring July 31st, 2022, Sarah R. Williamson, CFP, CIMA, CDFA of Denver, Colorado, reappointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of all the appointments on the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar, including members of the Board of Trustees for the Colorado School for the Deaf and the Blind, Colorado Student Leaders Institute Board of Directors, Colorado Commission on Higher Education, the Board of Trustees for Fort Lewis College, and the College Invest Board of Directors.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of all the governor's appointments listed on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, all of the appointments on the consent calendar are confirmed. The following persons are confirmed to the Board of Trustees of Colorado School of the Deaf and Blind: Andrew McElhaney, Nancy Brown, Michelle Butler, Alan Ward. To the Colorado Student Leaders Institute Board: David Yates. Colorado Commission of Higher Education: Stephanie Donner, Pardis Madivi, Venetia Kerr. to the Board of Trustees for Fort Lewis College, Janet Vilsack, Alan Hill, and on the College Investment Board of Directors, Sarah Williamson. Announcements. Senator Marble.
Thank you so very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, on your desk this morning you received a notification regarding a wonderful, wonderful organization, Community First Village. It's regarding homelessness, addiction, mental illness, and the answer truly is the hope that Community First Village gives. They're having a couple of different presentations tomorrow, starting at 11 o'clock, the next one at 12, and then and those are in 271. It will then move to 212 to be able to talk more about some of the wonderful opportunities that Community First Village offers all the people who are residents there. I would also like to say that Colorado Springs, El Paso County has donated 50 acres for the construction of Community First Village. One of the parcels is an absolutely beautiful area that is going to house hopefully around 200 tiny homes for these most wonderful people. So if you can, please be there, 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock, and then in 212 at 1 o'clock for further discussion and possibly another presentation.
Further announcements? Seeing no further announcements, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick announcement. If you want to ask Ledge Council to fund an interim committee this year, the deadline is April 5th to submit a letter proposing said committee to either Legislative Council staff or the Office of Legislative Legal Services. If you have any questions about that process or don't know exactly what to submit, please just get in touch with leadership and we can help you through that. Those need to be submitted by Friday, April 5th to give staff enough time to sort of help you through that process if you are going to need it. They have asked that you contact them on or before Tuesday, April 2nd to get that process started, so there's enough time to get it in before the deadline. Mr. President, with that, I move the Senate stand in recess until 1 p.m. today. Members, you don't need to be here. We're just going to be reading some confirmations across.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in recess until 1300 today.